Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Hi.
We made it.
Thank you.
I didn't think we would, but we did. Love you, baby.
Love you too. Hi.
I've heard about this piece.
Ah, awesome.
Well, our next artist is Felicia G. And
G.
Sorry, just did it again.
Sorry.
Did it again.
It's fine.
Felicia G. And what you can see here is we actually have a multitude of different art forms represented in the gallery, and I think that's actually very appropriate because one of the things that I want people to be thinking about is this is an artist who finds ways to make art with her whole body, with her whole being and her whole self. And so I really encourage you, like I said, when I say like spend some time in the exhibition, park yourself on one of those really cool benches and just hang out and watch the video. It is actually a series of many works sort of compiled into one. So definitely want to draw your attention back to the video. Let's hear from Felicia.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I feel so happy to see everybody. It's so many, of my family and friends. I'm so excited. So in the interest of time, I'm going to try to get everything in. This work is really layered and deep. So I'll start with just the fact that my work, centrally my work alchemizes pain and suffering and transgenerational trauma. The work really teaches me and helps me to reconnect with transgenerational wisdom. The work teaches me resilience and teaches me how to be at peace ultimately. So a lot of times I'm facing a lot of painful experiences or painful things that will ultimately lead me to develop a sense of peace by facing it and being present with it and ultimately rewriting or shifting the narrative. So the work that I make is about healing myself, and I'm healing myself for myself, but I'm also healing myself for my mother who is here, for her mother, my grandmother, for her mother and her mother and her mother and so on. The work itself is multidisciplinary, so I'm working in performance, I'm working here I'm drawing with charcoal. Words are really important to the work. Words come in really a lot through my mom. My mom is a poet and a writer, and the words just kind of through genetic memory have come through me. In addition to that, a major influence in my work, really the backbone to my practice is my grandparents, Cece and G. They're not here right now, but they have been with me through this whole process, and really I wouldn't have been able to even create this show if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for my grandmother with me by my side every moment, problem solving. So I'm really grateful for my grandparents. I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for my grandfather as a major influence in my work. He is an artist as well. He does everything. He's a painter, a sculptor. He does everything but what I do, photography, performance. So he's really amazing and has a really beautiful and powerful story of resilience himself, being a Black man and not being able to get, being told he couldn't get a job as an artist when he was younger. He actually ended up having his studio in the closet, and he worked in the mailroom after taking his portfolio around on the bus. He ended up working in the mailroom of an agency and worked his way up to junior art director at a time when a Black man didn't have that type of job. So he really inspires me and has always shown me the way in which to channel and to use my practice to really develop more understanding of myself, to explore myself. So it began as a process of self-exploration. And really, my family's fingerprint is really throughout this work. You know, my mom's writing, when he was told he couldn't be an artist, they forced him to take sign painting. So now I'm like painting, you know, words and writing words in a way that is similar. And he hated it, but he's like, I guess it came through you, you know? So all of these beautiful things come through. And not just that, it's also an ancestral component to the work. So there's a lot of my ancestry that I don't know. So I'm intrigued by the unknowns, and I feel like the unknowns really come through me into the work and teach me about myself, teach me about my lineage. The work is a lot about rewriting my entire self in a way, like the aspects of myself that are not in alignment, and rewriting those things in a very literal way so that the future generations that I birthed from my own womb, so that they don't carry any disempowering belief systems, that they don't carry on any pain and suffering that, you know, I have absorbed, you know. Both through my mom's womb, and me and my mom, we heal and we grow together. So the work has really taught me a lot in that way. Intrepid itself, so to get into Intrepid, it's real deep because Intrepid is so layered. It came to me at a time when I was studying dance, the movement, and wanting to bring movement and gesture into my work. It also came at a time when I was studying alchemy. I was studying subatomic particle collisions. And that basically means, to kind of like bring that down a notch, it means that scientists, quantum physicists, are putting these subatomic particles into this particle accelerator where the particles speed up really quickly because it's exposed to extreme heat, and they speed up, and at the center of this accelerator, they collide with each other. And the collision is more creative than destructive. The collision is really about creating something new. They're trying to find the creation molecule, the Higgs boson. So I think that what's really beautiful about that is that, one, collision being seen as creative, and then two, that the fact that these molecules, when they collide, they make these spirals. So I think that the spiral has always intrigued me. The main reason being that my grandfather paints a spiral everywhere. He paints it in our house, on the walls. He's just very free with his art form, and the spiral has really followed us. We have matching spiral necklaces since I was little. So the spiral really comes into the work in that way, to honor my grandfather, to honor our lineage, to honor my ancestors, to honor our family. But also, the spiral can be found galactically and molecularly, and it is a symbol of sacred geometry. If you think about the Fibonacci spiral, logarithmic spiral, it's a very powerful symbol. And to move my body in a spiral formation is really intense because it creates this vortex. It creates this energetic vortex. And what I'm doing there is I'm writing affirmations. Each time I do Intrepid, so I've been doing, Intrepid is actually a ritual performance work. And all these works are based around Intrepid, except for this one. This is a site-specific prayer that I created here in the space for this exhibition. And I'm gonna read that at the end. But Intrepid, I've been working on for 5 years now. I started in 2014. The first time I did Intrepid, I was studying all of those things, and all of them kind of converged, and I had this vision. I like to say that my work comes in the form of spiritual downloads. So I will receive a vision. I could close my eyes and I could just see a flash of it, or it could come in a dream. And I know a lot of us experience that, but not a lot of us follow those inclinations. So I always follow them. So when I saw Intrepid, I saw myself kneeling, and I saw dark soot, it looked like soot on my body, and I saw like these rings of something around me. And so what my work is then is to deconstruct that, to figure out what is that, what does that mean? And these are messages that ultimately help me in some way to understand my internal landscape better. So I thought about it, and I thought back to a fire that I had in my apartment, because I'm thinking, what is this stuff, this material that I'm using? And I remember the fire, my whole window was inflamed, and I ended up putting it out myself, because all my art was there, and I'm like, no, not today. And you know, after the smoke cleared, I had to leave the house. After the smoke cleared, I come back upstairs, and it's so many messages in this fire. I'll tell y'all about it if y'all interested. I'll tell you later, since it's like a really long story. But there's an image that I had of Deborah Willis's book called Posing Beauty on the wall, and everything burned away except for beauty. There were all these messages in this fire, and I remember just like touching the soot and rubbing it in my fingers like this and thinking about that. So 3 years later, when this vision came, I thought about that moment, and I said, charcoal. You know, it made sense. And so I started to play with charcoal, and I started noticing that when I wrote with charcoal and my body pressed against it, that those words were literally like transferred onto my skin. I started to also think about charcoal as not only, well, one, it's a ritual tool in the sense that like you can burn resins on charcoal. It can be used in ritual, but also charcoal is a residual of fire. It holds this combustive alchemical energy of fire. And then in addition to that, it's a purifier. It's a purifier of water. It's a purifier, and well, you know, our bodies are up to 60% water. And then that takes me back to the prenatal period, where we're in the prenatal fluid and what we absorb in that period of time and how I'm reworking that. And then I'm thinking about the spiral also in terms of the double helix of our DNA. So all of it kind of goes into, you know, quantum physics, it goes into alchemy, it goes into spirituality, and all of these things kind of converge to make this work. So when I first began, I sit in the middle of the piece and I just meditate for a while, and I let it come to me what I'm going to talk about. And while I'm meditating, it comes to me what I'm going to write, and each time it comes, it is like an affirmation. So the first time that I did it, I was meditating for a while, and it came to me, and I started, and I wrote, I release all attachments, I release all attachments, I release all attachments, I release all attachments, I embrace detachment, I embrace detachment, and I'm writing these over and over and over again. Then in Intrepid 1, I wrote, I give thanks, 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 I give thanks. And then Intrepid 2 was a group performance. I really want to thank Peter, who is here, because Peter, he saw this work and he really, you know, saw a vision for it. And during my time as resident healing artist for the New Day campaign, which he created, is when I created Intrepid 1 and 2. I want to thank Jessica Stafford Davis, because it was through us having a conversation about me recovering after Intrepid 2 and wanting to do a piece for closure that I did Intrepid 3 on Martha's Vineyard during Art on the Vine. And so during my time with the New Day campaign, I created an installation called Breaking Open, and I did Intrepid 1 in that space. Intrepid 1, I also did Intrepid 2 in that space. So Intrepid 2, I'm writing, I am free, I am free, I am free, I am free. And I want y'all to know too that like when I'm doing that, it's a very meditative experience. The reason why I'm repeating myself is because repetition and movement are a way that we can access our subconscious minds. So I'm really thinking about epigenetics, like the fact that shifting your perception can shift your genetic expression. I'm thinking about neuroplasticity, how we have the capacity to shift our minds and rewire our minds, create new neural pathways, and also deactivate certain neural pathways. So all of those things are embedded in the work. Intrepid 2 was a group performance, which you'll see. So this is 3 videos in one, kind of back to back. Intrepid 2 was a ritual performance with 4 other women, four beautiful women who were brave and powerful and, came together, and we came together to heal and make these spirals together. So I'm in the center of them, and then each of them is on either side of me. And during that time, they had their own, affirmations and words that they wrote. So that was, each person wrote a different thing, and you'll see that. Something that I found was interesting was, one thing that happened that was really sad. It's so many stories converging in my mind about this experience. That was really sad and heartbreaking and intense was that one of the women passed away about less than a month after Intrepid 2. She spoke a lot to us even after her transition. Like, we got all these messages, which gave us a lot of peace. But this ritual really bonded us. And I still communicate with all the other women, and we are friends and we are sisters. And so I'm really happy about that we created such a bond, so much so that Carla would, communicate to us. And not just that, I looked later at her work and it says, I am at peace, 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 over and over and over again. So that kind of gives me chills. But I dedicated that ritual performance to Carla. And the other women, Cece, Corinne, and Cheryl. And Intrepid 3 happens 3 years later. It took me a long time to heal from Intrepid 2. Each time after this work it's like this work lives in the transitional space between birth and death. So things are dying inside me, like a part of me is dying, an aspect of me is dying, and then another aspect of me is being born. So it's like this space between 0 and 1 where I'm catapulting into this new way of being. Like I'm really rewiring in that space. I'm present, I'm writing this affirmation over and over and over again. I'm stepping literally into it with my whole body and my whole being, and time kind of stops. So it's like Intrepid is really dismantling the old structure and not even rebuilding a new structure, but connecting to something that's more timeless, connecting to something that's more rooted in joy, connecting to something that's more rooted in peace and in our innate power and wisdom. And that, to me, it doesn't stop with this ritual. So when this ritual happens, there's a postpartum period. There's this learning that happens, and it always happens. So I'm basically trying to say that my evolution is still occurring, that this is an ongoing process, and that this is almost like de-weeding and then planting seeds and then fertilizing them, but you have to water them. So this work shows me what it is that I'm doing or how I'm being that's not in alignment with who I want to be. And this is Intrepid 3, which you can see being made up there. It's at Martha's Vineyard, and I'm writing here, I am, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. So this work, this space is really, it's really powerful for me to just feel this work in this way, and for it to all be in the same space, and to be able to have had this work framed and just to feel it. Right across from the photographs, the self-portraits that I took right after I did the ritual. So photography is a big part of the work as well. It's a way that I process. But I know I'm running out of time. I want to read this prayer to close, and I hope you all will stick around and watch the film, and we can talk more about it. Oh, I do want to give thanks to David Welch, who filmed Intrepid 3 and the way he did it was a drone. He's really awesome. And the sound is important to these works as well. I didn't get to turn it up while we were talking, but I will turn it up a little later, and then you all can really hear what it is. Each one is different, and I can tell you all about it. So I want to read this. This is a prayer that I wrote for this moment. The fire has already come and gone. Now the water, still and present, carrying ancient wisdoms and gifts of sustenance bound tightly to stories of resilience and peace, has flooded the interior passageways of my brain. Cerebral hemispheres now uncover what is true, what is innate to a once frazzled being is actually peace, is actually surrender. Keep me full with your clarity, O Olodumare. Make what was once densely packed light as a feather, floating so effortlessly on your current. Lead me deeper into wisdoms that anchor me in presence and flood me with spirit. Pulsing with life force, ashe, it is not that I now float above the experience of life, but that it flows through me so uninhibited that even grief bleeds into an inner deepening of true peace. Stillness chiseled by life's undulations, grounding in the reality that we will not just survive, we will thrive. We will embrace wonder and peak with joy. We will cry with reverence and peace as it proliferates our bodies and seeps into our genetics so that future generations will experience it as the essence of being alive, perpetuating a new cycle, that of freedom, of bliss, of innate abundance. Ashe. So Olodumare, just so you know, is God. Ashe means so be it. That is Yoruba. It's a language from Nigeria. It is the language of an ancient African spirituality called Ifa, which I study and practice. So yeah, I want to leave it at that, and I want to thank you all for watching, and I want to thank you all for being here and really activating this work. And I'm here if you want to talk more. Thank you.